And we're such a small group, but you're going to be surprised because there are at least 4 languages spoken here.
Okay.
And you might want to find out what they are. Anyway, you'll notice that I call Nathan Nathan now because he is my first choice. And on the ballot on March the 25th, he will be my first choice. And I hope after getting to know him, he will be on everyone's first choice in this room. So welcome, Nathan, and welcome to the group.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that nice endorsement and introduction. Thanks, everybody. Sorry I was late. I thought about it this morning when I woke up here, and which sounds strange, but waking up in the same city that you went to bed in sometimes is a surprise as a candidate. You often put your head down in one province and feel like you wake up in another. And I thought, I have one of those iPad doodads that I run around with, and it's my map as well, because I'm in a different town, different places. And I thought this morning, I over-rely on this thing. I depend on it too much. I should really open my eyes a little bit and make sure that I understand where it is that I'm going. So I sat out in front of a building on the other side of town, doing phone calls before, 10:30. Thought, well, I'll be there early and I'll just do all my calls. And thankfully, my friend phoned and said, "Hey, you coming?" I said, "Sure, I'm outside the building." It doesn't say PSAC on it, though. I wonder. So thank you. And beware of technology, even those on Twitter and all the rest, because you can over-rely. Why don't we do things this way? Why don't I just talk for 5-10 minutes, just introduce myself a little bit, and then we'll just go right to if people have some questions and comments on what's happening in the race and what's happening in the country. Does that seem fair? Yeah. Okay. I don't believe in monologues. There's too many of us in politics that have fallen deeply in love with the sound of our own voices, and I believe a race should be a conversation. When you're vying for people's support and their votes, you should know what's on their minds, and I want to know what's on your mind. So I come from, I don't know how much you know about me, but I live in northern BC with my family and my wife and my twin baby boys. We're just about 18 months old in a couple days. And we live in a little town called Smithers, population 5,000 or so. But I grew up in a town now with a population of 3.5 million. So I've lived both the rural and the urban life, and points in between. What's interesting about northern BC right now is it's also the place where they want to build that pipeline, right? Out from the oil sands, where I'll be tomorrow, right through to the west coast, where I'll be 2 days after that. And it's an interesting question because it's about a government's philosophy and the way about doing things. That we now have a government that's married itself to raw exports of all sorts of things. And is comfortable with the market making every single decision involved in our lives. And a deep ideological belief that only the market knows, and the market is always right, even when it's wrong. And that's a danger, because it puts us in between that question, and between the marketplace deciding these things and the government who doesn't care are the people who actually go to work, who hope to go to work. This pipeline has also become symbolic of how the Prime Minister thinks about Canadians. Because when people have gone to any of these meetings and shown up and made some comments, the Prime Minister has called them radicals and said that they're enemies of the state. That's beneath contempt for me. That's beneath what I believe the office of Prime Minister should be about. That while he's in that office, he's also my Prime Minister, and he's yours as well, because he speaks on your behalf. He speaks on my behalf. And for a Prime Minister to go around the world, he's in China right now, selling us down the river again, is offensive to me. This isn't about right-wing and left-wing politics, by the way, folks. I've actually designed a new spectrum. Normally they say, okay, on the left there's us, and then you go into the mushy middle, and there's the liberals, and then out on the right is the conservatives, the Saskatchewan parties and whatnot. I think there's another spectrum that I would put up, and that's an ideological perspective. And you've got deep, deep ideology within the conservatives. They put the blinkers on, and they believe what they believe, doesn't matter what the evidence is. And on the other end of the spectrum, you actually have the Liberal Party, who doesn't necessarily believe in anything other than power, right? That's a preoccupation of that party and has been since day one. And I find myself somewhere in that pragmatic middle. There's things that I believe in my core, that are fundamentals that you must abide by. And yet you also have to look and pay attention to evidence as to what's actually happening in the world, and then make your decisions that way. Yeah? So, know this, I ran a business before I got into politics. I'm a pragmatist. I believe in pragmatic ideas. I like when things get done. I got into politics to have things get done. I didn't get into politics for a debating society exercise. I got in here to make sure that we leave the world better than we found it for those ones. And we can't say that right now. This is the first generation being born right now who are being told that they should expect a lower quality of life than the generation before it. That's a fact. That's a problem. We're making decisions right now that affect what's next. Now, the Prime Minister hasn't stopped there. He's gone after OAS and pension security, and he's going to go after a whole series of things. But this is the art of a government. And the first, you've seen this before. The first 18 months, they do all the really nasty things they've always wanted to do. And then they'll start to soften a little bit. Then they'll get real nice. And then they're going to start to spend some money again. And then they're going to try to woo Canadians back. And hopefully they forget about all the nasty stuff that they're doing right now. The exercise we're engaged in is to make sure that we're building the movement and really? That's awesome. That's great. Anybody catching the Vita? It's going by. 11:30 just pulled in. Every once in a while. But our effort is this, and my campaign is built around this idea. I'm a community organizer. That's where my roots come from. I like to organize for campaigns, not just big P political campaigns, but campaigns around saving a senior's home or making a women's shelter get created or stopping a bad environmental project. Is that it's always about lists. It's always about lists. It's always about those people that can you get in touch with them and can you motivate them on the things that they care about. I don't want to be too stark about this, but people don't care about political parties in this country. The overwhelming majority of Canadians don't give a rip, really, one way or the other, about political parties. And most Canadians are, in fact, not partisan. In the sense that there may be a way that they vote and traditionally vote, but more and more, and particularly with the generation coming up, they move around. They vote this way, they vote that way, they don't vote at all. And our exercise is to find out those issues right across this country that motivate people. In my part of the world right now, we're talking a lot about pipelines. That is a big motivating issue. Also true in Alberta, actually. That's one cohort. For others, the attack on seniors' pension security is a motivating issue. Right? We got to find those people. We got to find them, get them to understand that the vehicle that we are, this political organization that I'm involved in, is simply a vehicle that takes you from here to over there. And if you get in it, maybe over there is a better place to be than where you are right now. That's the idea. So, I've also suggested some really outrageous things. I've suggested that we cooperate with other parties in advance of the next election. And be explicit, because it's some of my friends who are also now political opponents have sometimes mischaracterized what I'm suggesting. That's okay. I've suggested that in conservative held seats, most of Saskatchewan, for example, I would allow local members to make a choice about whether to hold a joint nomination meeting or not. A joint nomination meeting would be like a runoff in advance of the federal election in which Liberals, Greens, and New Democrats got in the same room. At a nomination meeting, there were candidates from each of those parties, and they picked one person. And that person who wins that nomination meeting goes on and takes on the Conservative incumbent in the election. This is in response to two things. One, the current Prime Minister and the current regime that we're living under right now, which I believe is a clear and present danger to many of the things that I believe in as a Canadian. Winning the next election is about a lot more than just the New Democrats. It's about this country. And I will do whatever it takes to make sure that that guy's not in office in 4 years' time. Whatever it takes. I'm serious about this, folks. This is not a political exercise. This is not a debate for debate's sake. This is serious. Because if this guy gets 8 years, we're not going to recognize Canada at all. And we're going to kill a lot of the things that we deeply believe in and things that we fought for many years. Second reason, we have a broken political voting system. The voting system doesn't give people what they want. We need to change that. But we can't change it when we're sitting in the opposition benches. You only get to change it when you're in government. And that would be the first bill that I would introduce. is to introduce a voting system, a mixed member proportional system, some sort of electoral reform, so that when people go in and vote, there's a good chance that that vote actually translates into the parliament that we create. Because right now, we have a prime minister who has the support of about 24% of voting age people in this country. 24. But he ends up with 100% of the power. That's not right. That's broken. So I've suggested cooperation. I've suggested that a proud part of our history as Democrats has been that we have cooperated with other parties to get things done. We have. In 2005, we negotiated a budget, right? A $5 billion budget that we took from corporate taxes and made it into something else. We created the employment insurance system, the social welfare system. We did all of these things, but we didn't do it alone. We didn't do it alone. We'll take a lot of credit for it, but we didn't do it alone. We worked with somebody else. In all of those cases, in fact, it was Liberals. I'm not talking about the Liberal Party of Canada. I'm not. I'm talking about their voters. I'm talking about people who support and vote for that party. And the question is, do we share any of their values? I think that we do. I think we share some of the values of people who have voted Green. I do. All the way? No. Are there things that they say that I think are crazy? Yes. Are there things, or problems that I have with the Liberal Party of Canada? Oh my gosh, yes.